One or
So, do you want to move over here so then we can talk to everybody at once?
can work.
Do you see the link time?
Mom, can I get my charger out of my bag?
I'm gonna put this thing that connected here, okay?
And then Landry?
All right.
That's my.
What is this, a homecoming? Wow, this is wonderful. So what's your name?
Sean Moses.
Did it come on?
It's on.
Is that your married name or your maiden name?
No, that's my maiden name.
We are live. Hi, Jen.
That's my name.
Hi, Christine. We are live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have some people who are watching us from Facebook Live as we start our table talk, and we ask that you all bear with us. We also have people in South Carolina who are hosting watch parties, and in North Carolina who are hosting watch parties for this table talk, so we are extremely grateful for you all being here, and we apologize for starting late, but the weather has been crazy between South Carolina and Georgia. So we finally got down here. We finally got people here. We finally got set up and we're ready to start. So momentarily you should see the link for this live, and then please share the live. Thank you all for coming. Please partake of our delicious coffee and lemonade and pastries over here. We have materials here for everybody about Moms Queen Air Force and also about Community RX. Got it, Tanya?
Will it automatically share on the page?
On the Moms page? It's on the Moms. I'm doing it live from the Moms page. It needs to go to the event.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Somebody else will do it. So then we can get started.
I mean, like, sit there.
Mm-mm.
It's
Okay, good. Good. So it is shared and everybody should be able to access it. So we want to start with,
I only got one page. Sean, did you only
Yes,
get Sean?
I did. I thought they were all
There you
similar.
go.
Thank you. So they're different? You need it, okay. You need it.
of course I do. So we're going to start by talking about what the table means to Black people. So, you know, we have this awesome side of the kitchen and of the table where we gather, we have family dinners, we have family meetings, we have talks and discussions, and you know, we might have arguments and then eat afterwards, but the family table has always been a great place for Black folk to get together, right? And then we have the table that for so long we served. For so long we weren't allowed to sit at the table. We just served those that were at the table. So table talks is one of the resources for the Community RX program to gather, for communities to gather and discuss environmental injustices and environmental racism and how African Americans are disproportionately affected by climate change and pollution. So, you want to add anything to that?
I was just gonna ask, are there times at home when you guys talk about environmental health? Like
Yes.
anything related to air pollution? What do you talk about?
Well, maybe not specifically air pollution, but I know we're taking more so of with like the water system, in the area for DeKalb County. You know, how you can sometimes smell the pollution in the water.
Yes.
And even just running it, how it has that unclear type look to it.
Yes.
So my family, we already do things like recycling, changing our water system out,
Perfect.
just try to go to a better environmentally safe household.
Perfect. What about you ladies? I know you're very involved in the community.
But we live in two different households.
Okay.
Okay. But yes, my area of town in particular is more subject to environmental pollution,
Mm-hmm.
noise,
Mm-hmm.
just pollution in general. So yes, we do have discussions about it, but those discussions aren't as prevalent now as they were in the past.
Okay.
Because issues continue to grow. So we have to go from issue to issue.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the hard thing about the environmental movement and the fact that it flows into other issues that we have. If we think about the pollution and we think about like even the air pollution, the noise that you're talking about, if we take someplace like Chicago and we think about all the coal ash that they've been exposed to from way back, when you think about Good Times and they used to talk about all that stuff there and the pollution then and how that affects neurotoxins, how that affects the brain. So then how does that affect how you develop? How does that affect your education? How does that affect whether or not you commit a crime? How does that affect, there are all these pipelines. And so when we think about environmental health, it is so many different things that flow into that we have to pay attention to it because it affects us the most.
Right.
When we look, like if you look at the back of this, and there's some facts there, when we look at the asthma rates for Black kids, and I drove here from South Carolina and it was crazy. All the roads, all that pollution coming from the trucks and the cars, and they go directly through communities of color. And sometimes it's unintentional and sometimes it's intentional. You can think about Hurricane Katrina and think about when the levees broke and think about who was affected. How many years ago did they know that those levees wouldn't hold? How many years ago did they know who would be affected the most? So these are the conversations that we want to start engaging in. And these conversations for environmental justice have been taking place for decades. Moms Clean Air Force is new to the conversation as we realize that Black folk and lower income folk are affected the most. So we've got to do something. And we always talk about having a seat at the table. And so this is our opportunity to have a seat at the table in this conversation instead of having people that are not in our communities making decisions about our communities. Because it happens to us all the time. All the time they're around and they're making decisions or what we call helicoptering in, exposing issues, letting us know what needs to be done, and then they're gone. And so with Moms Clean Air Force and this new program, Community RX, we are committed to being engaged with communities, with talking with communities, African American communities, and then African American environmental leaders to find out what we can do and how we can amplify and elevate the stories that already exist, and how we can get in the movement that already exists. We are just now taking our seat at the table, and we're inviting everybody along with us so that we can have these conversations.
And we also just want to make sure we equip you with the knowledge. Like this event like this, you can have things like this at your house. And I know sometimes you don't know, like, well, what are the next steps? Like, what do I do after I have the conversation about, you said your family talk about the water pollution that's going on, or, the pollution conversations that you have, the noise. So what's next? Like, what organization can I go to make sure I understand how to contribute to making the air pollution better? Or even, how can I change things in my own house to make the air pollution better in my own house? So we want to make sure that you are equipped with the information, so you can have the table talks at your house and pass out the resources like to help you to understand what's next. Where can I go? Who else can I talk to? How do I get my elected officials, involved with what's going on? What do I do? Because we know that you want to do something beyond the conversation. And so, as Shaquila was saying, we're just not stepping on the scene, and we want to make sure that our African American people are equipped with the knowledge to know how to be, I guess, what do we say, a force for clean air?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do we,
Absolutely. Knowing what our issues are out, locally and on a national level, knowing those things that affect us, and, as moms, we're moms. My son shouldn't have to, my son who's asthmatic, shouldn't have to pay attention to what the air quality is like before he steps outside every day. And that's what we have to do in the summertime. Because if the air quality ain't right, then that means, son, you gotta take your pump with you, or son, you need to do your pump before you walk out. And all of that is climate change and pollution and environmental health issues. So the thing about table talks is we are encouraging you all to have them on your own. Have them with your mom and your dad and your sister and your husband and your daughter, and talk about the things that you can do as a family, things that you could do if you are a person of faith, that you can talk to your church, things that you can do in your community. And we all know as church folk, when we have, dinner after church, we got our styrofoam cups and our styrofoam plates and our straws. Imagine what would happen if all the black churches took a vow to not use styrofoam, to use paper.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Yeah.
What would happen if we actually took better care of the earth that God gifted us with?
Yes.
So that's another resource of Community RX, which is a Bible study. It's a 5-week Bible study. It's online. I also have paper copies. And it talks about creation care. It talks about how we're connected to the earth, how we came from the earth, how God breathed the breath of life into us. So that's air. All the elements, all the natural elements are there. And we are using them all up so that what happens when our children have children? What will we be leaving them? We always talk about we want to leave legacies of money and wealth and good credit and health. But honestly, are we leaving them with good health if we are just tearing the earth apart? So we have to pay careful attention to what they're seeing, what our kids are watching, how they're viewing us. And one thing I can say for you, because you have a garden at home, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That's one of that's a huge thing, because we have in our community so many food deserts where people don't have access to fresh fruit, fresh food and produce. And I cannot garden.
You have a black thumb?
What? I killed an aloe vera plant. I did. An aloe vera plant. I killed an aloe vera plant. My grandma was like, it has its own water. What did you do to it? Right. But encouraging people to have their own gardens. They know what's in the soil, and they're not putting toxins and chemicals in their bodies. I mean, y'all remember what chicken looked like back in the day versus what it looks like now. And how the vegetables weren't as bright and vibrant, but now all the tomatoes are red
And shiny.
Oh, shiny. They look good, don't they?
No.
And right. And then we look at places that have, the organic food, and they're more expensive. So naturally, communities of color can't necessarily always afford to go shop at Whole Foods and places like that.
Yeah.
So we have all of these things to consider.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we want you all to talk about with your table talks. How do you have a table talk? What is a table talk? That's the second section here. They're casual gatherings where moms, dads, grandparents, and others in the community learn about air pollution and climate and how these issues affect African Americans, their families, and communities. You share stories, you make connections, and then you make a decision to take action. What are we going to do? What is our next step going to do? The purpose of the table talk is to organize, motivate, and activate volunteers. They can be used to engage and educate the community about local, state, regional, and federal issues, as well as organize around issues of environmental health justice. So one of the things that we do is we make sure to do our research about our legislators to see where they stand on climate. We do research on our elected officials to see if there is a climate resiliency plan for your city. We do research on our elected officials to see if they're considered climate champions. We go to Capitol Hill and we meet with them and we tweet at them and we call them and we email them and we go to see them in their offices in our cities. This is what Moms Clean Air Force does, and now what we're wanting to do more so is have more African Americans engaged in that, engaged in talking to your elected officials about and holding them accountable for what they're doing to our communities and what they're standing for in our communities. Let's see what else.
Gonna go over our goals?
Yeah, please.
So our goals for the table talk is to, as Shaquila mentioned, bring like-minded members of the African American community together to hear about the opportunities to get involved with Moms Clean Air Force. So one thing that we're going to be doing is planting trees on Saturday. We're super excited about that. I'm hoping to see you. You too. And Mama, you mentioned like the noise that happens in neighborhoods. So, you know, we think about trees and how they provide oxygen and shade, and you build enough trees or plant enough trees, it blocks out noise. How crazy is that? It's a barrier. So it's like people, you know, they don't really understand, like there are so many things that trees can do for a neighborhood.
Cleaning the air.
Cleaning the air, absolutely. So another goal is to engage in discussions about air pollution, climate change, and other environmental health concerns in the African American community, to build and solidify relationships in the African American community, and to take meaningful action on our issues, and then to inspire volunteers to commit to getting involved. So if they see us, you know, excited about doing it and excited about, you know, the fact that African American individuals are starting to talk about this stuff, I feel like our friends, family members,
Absolutely.
godparents, uncles, aunts, mamas, everybody would be more inclined to get involved because it's affecting us. We don't talk about it. You wonder why you go to the basketball court and you're tired running up and down the court. You got asthma. You may not even, nobody in your family has it, so you're not talking about that. You don't even know what you're breathing outside that has contributed to that. You know what I mean? So.
And yeah, and you know, growing up in certain places, like growing up in a small town like mine in Camden, where a lot of the people work in manufacturing and they work around those synthetic dyes and fabrics, and then you look years later and they've got cancer or respiratory issues and all of these things that nobody's ever put two and two together. But when you research, and those of you that are from the area, I won't say the plant, but if you research the plant, you'll see how many times they've been sued for different things related to health issues. So, you know, there's so much that we can do and so much to talk about. These red shirts are known on Capitol Hill. They see these red shirts come, they're like, oh, moms are here. The moms are here. It's time to do something. So, you know, we are synonymous with making things happen and, you know, making sure that we accurately tell the stories about what's going on so that people understand why there's a need to act. So we want you all to host a table talk one day. Even if it's just a couple of your friends, it could be at home, it could be at church, it could be at a coffee house, it could be at a library, community center, wherever. There are so many materials on our website. Tanya and I could mail you materials.
Absolutely.
And we would help you. We will be the support for you to hold a table talk. You contact one of us, we're going to send you your folders, your sign-in sheets, your pins, your t-shirts, name tags, and thank you cards, all of this stuff that you're going to need and the information that you would need to have table talk. But more so than anything else, we just want y'all to act. Just want you to think about how you can make a difference, how your family can make a difference. Think about things like flooding. You remember all that flooding in Camden?
Yes.
Think about flooding. You know, think about the fact that literally yesterday I had on flops and today it was icy.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
If-
sleeting.
If that ain't if that ain't climate change, now I don't know what is. Like super storms that come through and rip through our states,
Yeah.
and people are still trying to recover. You know, if we think about these things and we think about who they're affecting, we think about the fact that so many people and organizations have been active in this, and we have not been so active in this. We've got to do something. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to pose a question about whether there has been any research or acknowledgement of intentional air pollution as it relates to criminal behavior. The large number of dialysis clinics in our communities, the high rate of diabetes.
Diabetes, yeah.
So there's lots of research, but there's never any research that directly says this causes this.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. There'll be correlation between this and that. Like we have this, let's see, cancer and pollution in the African American community. And on that, there are several studies there that you can go to and read some of the information about cancer in African Americans. So this stuff it's a lot. We think about also fertility and infertility, or asthma. Already said. There's so many issues, and we will be producing more fact sheets on this stuff to be able to provide information and give you links to research so that you can look at the research yourself, so we're not pulling it out of the thin blue air. As far as criminal behavior, I think that most of the studies that I have seen have been from the psychological perspective. So when you look at the American Psychological Association, they've done studies on how the environment, the actual environment, has affected different people. And they'll go and they'll do studies on people that are incarcerated, and then they'll ask them about not only like their family environment, but the physical environment, the air. Where did your parents work? You know, did anybody smoke in the home? All of these things that come into play. And so most of those studies are psychosocial studies. I don't know of any that are like medical studies, but we have people on our team that would know some of these answers. I'm looking to see if anybody's answering.
That would be good to know, though. That's a really good
That is a
question.
really, really good question. And that's a really good question. I know that when I was in Chicago last year, it was crazy because we drove from another part that was not Chicago, and as we drove into Chicago, I'm like, what is this? And it was dust. Like, that's how thick
Like
it was. Soot.
Yeah.
On me. And I was like, what is it? She's like, oh yeah, it's bad today.
Wow.
And kids play in it. It's like the wind blows, it blows it off of the piles, and the kids are playing in it. And you know it's toxic. And then one of the latest things has been the beauty industry. The health and beauty industry has been has been targeting African Americans. When we go into our hair stores, there was a study that came out the other day. Somebody shared it with me, and I shared it on Facebook, that just for me had 32 toxins in it. And some of them were related to cancer. And that's just for me. That was the one that had a little bit of lye.
Yeah, for the kids.
For the kids.
For the
So when you
babies.
think about our options for our skin and for our hair, things that you can get from the beauty supply stores that are in our area, those things have lots of toxins in them. And they affect us in a lot of ways. I believe in that study it mentioned something about the correlation with breast cancer and fibroids.
I was going to say fibroids.
It was fibroids. And I thought to myself, wow, how many black women do I know with fibroids?
A lot.
Yeah.
It's very common now.
Extremely common. And so you know, there are all of these things to think about. You think about the aluminum in deodorant.
Mm-hmm.
You think, you know, all of this stuff, the, you know, makeup we
Makeup,
use,
mhm.
even the stuff we cleanse our face with.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff has toxins in it, and they're marketed to us because in order to get stuff that doesn't have the chemicals in it, you have to leave your community and go get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not easily accessible, and 9 times out of 10 it's more expensive.
It's more expensive. Mm-hmm.
So where does that put us? That puts us using these same products that we've been using forever and ever and ever. And I'm to the point now where what I'm trying to do at home is change our hair products and our cleaning products. Cleaning products has been the hardest thing because I'm old school.
Like the smell that Clorox
Like the
bleach.
smell it. Like the smell it.
Like the smell of Clorox bleach.
So that has
not
been-
clean if it's not strong.
Right, but there are some natural things
Yeah.
like orange oil, citrus, lemon, vinegar, things like this that you can use that clean very well.
And
So
you have
I'm
it in
doing,
your house.
I'm doing, yes. I'm doing a pretty good job, except, you know, laundry detergent. The laundry detergent. I just,
Gotta get something clean.
right. I want to make sure it's clean. I have
Borax.
kids that are athletes.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, there's so many things that we have to consider, so much information that we
Yeah.
want to spread to everybody else and have everybody thinking about.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
How do you take this to the actual communities that are being affected? Like I teach, and most of my kids, pretty much 99% of my kids come from the areas that we're talking about. Like they have diabetes at the young age, they're overweight, they have Takis and whatever for
Hot
breakfast.
Cheetos.
Yeah, they eat all hot things. So, how do you take this and talk to them and their parents about it?
So I think hosting a table talk for maybe your PTA group would be a good idea. I also think that, you know, some of those times when you're having maybe a class party or something like that, sometimes you have to be the example in providing snacks that don't have, you know, those dyes in them and loaded with sugar. Or high fructose corn syrup, which is totally different from raw sugar. So I think sometimes being the example, finding ways to have the conversation, and like a lot of our materials for the community RX, let me see how I can say it. The verbiage is verbiage that speaks to us. And that, I think that makes a difference. Because let's just face it, I just got into the environmental movement just a couple years ago. To me, when I thought about the environment, I thought about,
You didn't see yourself.
I did not see myself.
Yeah.
I thought I had heard the words recycle and greenhouse effect, greenhouse gases. That was about it. That was all I really knew until I went to a conference in Miami. And they started talking about environmental racism. They started talking about Katrina. They started talking about environmental justice. Then a couple years later, we're talking about Flint, Michigan, who still doesn't have clean water. Environmental injustice all the way. And then we look at the EPA and all the things that the last administration put in place to safeguard us from all of this stuff. And all of these things now are being rolled back. And it's heartbreaking, it's frustrating, but we have to keep up the fight, because if we don't, our children will suffer. They will continue to suffer. Like, I look at it like, me personally, my generation, I have failed. So I have to make sure that I make it right for the generations to come, because we're not getting it right now. You know? And we don't want to encourage people to move outside of our communities where it may be healthier here, or better air quality there, or even checking your school air quality is very important. We don't want to encourage people to do that. We want people to still have that village feel, that community, you know, that we've always had growing up, where your kids could play outside and Miss Such and Such would get on your child if your child wasn't acting right. You know, we still want very much to have that community. We want to have that beloved community that Dr. King talked about. You know, we want to be able to achieve his dream and look at the dream as way more than voting rights or
Words written on a page.
words written on it. There are other, other social issues. And this is a civil rights issue. The right to breathe fresh air and eat clean food and to live in a place that where superstorms are not gonna, destroy
Right.
your homes. Those are civil rights. We have these rights and we have to fight for them.
Are you able to do something like a table talk at your school?
Well, when we have meetings with parents, we probably have about an average of 2 parents there. I
Okay.
teach high school, so
Okay.
our parents don't.
So the best way to get to the parents is through the kids. The best way, and so I guarantee you, if you come up with some type of project where
Just gonna say,
that's going to
yeah.
be fun for them, but requires them to do a little bit of research, because like with my kids, they are amazed sometimes at, like Landry just went full in with how this stuff affects animals, because she loves animals. So she's like, wait, you mean to tell me animals are going to die? We got to do something. Right, these people are killing animals. We have got to do something. So,
Yeah.
so they'll find that thing that makes them
Yeah.
say, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And for most kids, most teenagers, it is Katrina, or because they remember the images. And recently, what was the one that hit Houston with all the flooding? That was not Maria. Was that Maria?
It was 2 years ago. I can't remember what that name was, but
2 of them they hit.
yeah, I was gonna say
back
it's
to
been
back.
2. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
So some of the images, and if you Google some of them and show them those images, that stuff resonates with them.
Yeah.
It does. And if you ask a lot of them, they'll tell you that they may recycle at home, and then you can ask them, what more can you do? And we have, let's see.
I guess I'm gonna have to be very creative.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
What if your mama asks, what area, what subject do you teach?
I teach science.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, that's a good, because I teach language arts, and so like with me, I know we're working on, argumentative writing and things like that. So I'm actually looking at this and at the same time thinking of a way to incorporate it in my classroom by end of the month. So we still in Black History Month. We're talking about Black social issues right here. So they can use some of this, and we're working on the research, pros and cons. What can you do about it to kind of bring them to still in the curriculum, but also bring awareness to it, and then you also get the parents involved if they're
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
following.
Well,
From the
like I
kids.
said, I'm gonna have to be a little.
Yeah,
I teach
yeah.
at an alternative school,
Okay,
so.
that's a little different.
That's a lot different.
So,
yeah.
And I
Here's-
teach, and I'm not at a traditional high school. I teach at a non-traditional alternative school where the curriculum mostly is online. And we,
Okay.
our teachers in the classroom, subject-specific teachers in the classroom, they help the students out when, they might get stuck on the issue. Like I teach 14 classes in 14 different classes in a class period.
Okay.
So that's why,
That
so
is a
some of
lot,
the things that I was thinking about, some things that I do is like when the kids come in, they're eating hot chips. I won't let them eat
Hot
that.
fries,
I'm like,
yeah.
let's go to breakfast. Go eat breakfast. And I tell them to drink more water. I try to get them water,
Right.
but they see me with this because you saw me put the stuff in. But I tell them that that's a way for me to drink more water.
Right.
75% of them smoke every day.
Oh wow.
So
Already?
I'm listening.
Is this
already?
So-
They started that.
In high school?
I'm in the hood.
Okay.
I teach. If we want to, because the neighbor is taken out of the word. I'm in the hood, so Aunt Mary is not gonna be over there telling.
Yes.
Telling.
Yes.
Him to sit down.
I
or
get
not
it.
do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Because
I was
there's
just sitting
no
here.
telling what might happen to
Right.
them.
Right.
Right. I was
Mhm.
telling my mom on the way in. I said, I think what's going on with parents now is that they want us to keep their kids and try their best to do everything to where they don't have to keep them.
It's
And
There's so many stresses that affect parents.
Yeah.
That they may really be looking for relief.
A relief.
in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
they do. But if we have 20 in the class that are like what they don't want at home,
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Another resource for you may be, because Spelman and Morehouse have a office of sustainability, or something like that, and so they have a program, and you may be able to get somebody to come out and talk to your students, or to provide you with some online resources from the collegiate level that will probably speak more to them. And actually, we will have one of them at Nataki. We'll have her at our Saturday event, talking to us about why Black people should be engaged and why we should care about this. So, and we can be resources. Let us know.
Yeah. Definitely gonna have a discussion with them to see what do they know.
Yeah.
That's a great start.
I was gonna say that's a really good start. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hello. Hi.
Well,
Come to tell us that our time is almost up.
yes, our time is almost up. And everybody online, thank y'all so much for joining us. Do we have any questions online? Hi, Heather. Do you all have any other questions? I want to make sure that we have other materials over here that you guys should grab. And, let me know if I can send you anything else. Check out our website. There's so much information there.
Come plant trees with us on Saturday.
Yes, come plant trees with us. Rain or shine, we are planting trees on Saturday.
Bring your rain boots.
Yes.
Bring your rain boots.
Bring your rain boots.
And a hat.
Yeah.
Because, we don't want our hair wet, really.
We can't use the products to get it back right.
Exactly. So,
especially when you have to come to the Saturday night event as well.
So let me let y'all know what's going on the rest of the week. So tomorrow we have live Bible study where we'll be talking about the interconnectedness between us, God, and the earth. So that'll be live with two ladies that are from Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. And so they deal in this stuff too. And that's the Georgia branch of them. And then Thursday is our asthma day. And so we will be talking with Chauncey Lundy Russell, who is also a soror of ours. And she'll be talking to us about building green and engineering green, and also be talking to us from a personal perspective about her child who has had some respiratory issues, and he's just a toddler. Then Friday is Mercury Day. If you've been watching the news, you've heard about the EPA rolling back all of these standards for mats. And so we are going to arm you all with lots of information to talk to your elected officials about as far as Mercury is concerned. And then Saturday is our tree planting from 9 to 12. And then Saturday evening is our community table talk event, where we will have a panel and keynote speakers who are all leaders in the environmental movement that will come out and talk to us about all of this. And that's at the Trees Atlanta venue.
What's the location?
Speak to Heather Landry. Oh, goodness. And then Sunday we're going to end with worship at Impact Worship Center
in Mapleton.
And so that's where we will be worshiping. So you can worship with us there. You can worship
and they're also online.
It'll be streaming.
Yeah.
You can worship at your own place. What we're asking is that you talk to your lay people and your pastors or the leader of your church about what your church can do.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the first lady. You the trustee?
No, I was chair last year.
Oh.
And all of this information that we have here is all online. So if you do find, if you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh, I wish I had those resources, it's all on our Community RX website. So.
Yep. And everything you have should have our website on it, and my email and Tanya's email, and Landry does not have an email, even though she is a part of the team. She does not have a mom's email, even though she is a spokesperson.
I can tell.
Yes, she has written several books about the duck quackers he got messed up in the oil spill.
Oh.
Yeah. He survived.
Yay!
Yes.
Happy ending.
Won't Jesus do it? It's not the ending. There is more about quackers coming, people. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you all tomorrow for our live Bible study.
Yes, you will.
Hope to see you there. Bye.
Bye.